Alright, everybody. Running a little late today, but thank you for your patience. So if you look over there, you can see that kind of two peaks there. That is Scuba. No, it's Scuba. So that is one of Japan's 100 famous mountains. And it's actually the shortest of the 100 famous mountains, if I remember correctly. Either it was shortest or second shortest. And, yeah. One that's climbed a lot. Well, some of it is easy to get to from Tokyo. You take the Scuba Express and then a bus. It also is easy to get up to the top because they have a ropeway and they have I forgot what they call it, but it's like a train, but it goes up the side of the mountain. Fulton? Something like that. Jack can go in and remind me what it is. Sometimes I'm like, what's that thing called again? Definitely a case of that. Some other people on the trail, which is a little odd. Actually, a lot of times I do this walk pretty early in the morning, so I don't see many people. So they recently did some cutting. Ohayou gozaimasu. Looks like she was out collecting sensei. So these trees here are actually cherry trees. So during the spring, I think I did a live stream here in the spring. It is quite impressive. The thing with cherry trees though is so their leaves do turn this kind of yellowy orange color. They've all been swept up, obviously. Here's one. So the thing about cherry trees is, let me try to get you up there. So their leaves do kind of change to this nice color, this kind of yellowy color. The problem is they don't actually stay on. They very quickly fall off. So you don't really get a cherry tree that's in full yellow foliage at one time, because they turn yellow and they fall off very, very quickly to each other. So you end up just with all these leaves on the ground from the cherry trees. Here's a good example. There's a nice, that's the yellow, quite high. That's the yellow that they changed to, which isn't a bad color. It would actually look, cherry trees would look amazing if they kept their foliage on for a few days, or for a while, kind of more like a maple, an oak, or a ginkgo. And if they did, like they had beautiful fall foliage, they would kind of be the most OP ornamental tree ever. Because in the spring, you have the cherry blossoms, you have a nice green tree in the summer, and then the autumn, you would have the yellow foliage. But they don't, they drop very quickly. You can see some here. They've been cleaning up here. You can also see where they've been cutting the grass, which was getting quite long. You know, they came in, they cut the grass, they remove it. Where is this? This is in Mocha, this Tochigi. So this is the Gogo River. This is actually also part of the Kanto Friendship Trail, if I remember correctly. Fishing. Looks like carp fishing by the size of those rods. They do release at least last year they released some ayu in here. I don't know if they've released ayu in here this year. He's definitely carp fishing. Look at that rod. It is a good time of year for carp fishing. I did get out a few years. Yeah, no, Tochigi's, depending where you are, Tochigi does get a little colder faster. It's not cold part of Japan. Well, it's also hard. You know, I came from a very cold place that's probably weather's more comparable to Hokkaido. So I pretty much don't say anything's really cold. But we are notably cooler than Tokyo. I think about that every time I visit. Oh, the summers can be weird. We had a nasty summer. Actually, it wasn't that it was hotter than Tokyo this summer. It's that we had a few times more humidity. It just kind of gets trapped between the valleys here. Where am I from? I'm from the northeastern United States. I grew up in a place called Massachusetts. It's kind of that northeastern part of the United States, the part that kind of juts into Canada. Waterworks, water control. Rice has been harvested. Oh, cool. Yeah, it's a bit of a trip. I like it. I think it's a nice part of the United States. The thing I sometimes run into is I haven't actually seen very much of the United States. I mean, some of it is really, you know, I didn't really spend my adult life in the United States. So I'll sometimes suffer from like, yeah, I don't know, I left. I don't remember that. Or haven't been there. Someone's coming on a bicycle. I don't mind catching like the backs of people's heads and lives. I don't want to catch the actual. Oh yeah, our lovely local graffiti. There's our crime rate. Yeah, so I grew up in Massachusetts, so that kind of northeastern area, the United States I know. I went to university in New York City, so I know New York City decently. I have some family in Texas, so I visited Texas a few times, but a lot of the United States, I'm like, I went there once, or I've never been there. So it will be kind of funny. My wife will ask me questions about the United States. I'm like, yeah, I've never been there. Like, yeah, I don't know. Oh, Portsmouth. I like Portsmouth. Portsmouth is nice. I used to go up there quite a bit when I was like a teenager, early 20s. I think the last time I went would have been I was 22, 23, right before I left the United States. Factory over there is a little noisy. So in the spring, this is actually a really good place for nanahana. So a few times I took my daughter here and we would pick nanahana, and she developed a taste for it, and we started eating. She liked it, which my wife thought was hilarious because, I'd pick a few, I'd eat a few, I'd pick a few, I'd eat a few. And, I picked them to be cooked, and then my daughter caught on, and then she just started eating them raw too, and she's like, oh, all right, I like this. Oh, still some rice there. A little more green here. Oh yeah, the clam chowder. That is like the northeastern United States, New England area, they call it, New England region. That is probably one of the best foods. That's like on those lists of things like, I'm gonna go back. What am I gonna try out? Clam chowder. Group of people up there. One of those sidewalk conferences. Yeah, I like nanahana. I like a lot of the spring foods. Bamboo shoots are definitely another favorite of mine. Although it's about time to go look for chestnuts, which is actually probably my favorite autumn food. Actually, right, this section here is really good for nanahana. These like next 4 or 5 trees. Yeah, so I almost instead went going looking for chestnuts this morning, but I was like, I don't want to bicycle all the way out there. The hills that are good for getting chestnuts are a little ways away. So sometimes it's like, I don't feel like bicycling that far. Or walking that far, actually walk. It's hard. I like them both in different ways. I do like Japan a lot. I have no, it's one of those things I'll probably end up back in the States. My wife is also a foreigner. But like, it's not a driving desire of mine, like, I gotta go back to the States. I don't know. I do like Japan a lot, though. Before Japan, I actually lived in Taiwan, which I also liked a lot. Ohayou gozaimasu. Probably eventually. Not sure yet. It's one of those things where, kids too, we do think maybe eventually, when it comes time for like primary school, we might move back. Because neither me or my wife are Japanese. Not that that's been an issue for her in schooling so far. I really like our preschool here, actually, though. To be totally honest, I love our preschool. It's a little Buddhist preschool. And I really like the teachers and all that, and they really work hard with us about, her not being Japanese, about Japanese being a second language for her. Neither me or my wife are Japanese. They work very well with us with that. Now, also, granted, we're not the only family of, foreign origin. So I think they're kind of used to it, maybe is the best word. I'm really glad they keep the kanji simple. Because, around the kanji, I'm just like, what is this? I like the pace of life better in Japan at times. But it's also different because, I don't work a corporate job, where my wife probably has a very different answer. Where she has a much more corporate job that's, much more of what you would think of as a standard Japanese job, where I teach on the side, I freelance, I string stuff together, which is a little different, I guess. So I think for someone in my position, Japan can feel really great. Where, I understand somebody who has a more corporate style job is more there, all right, I gotta be there at 8, I gotta work. There's the social side of showing face, which is a big thing here. I can understand that they'd be a lot more life's rough. Spider lilies. These are one of my favorite flowers. Poisonous, or the bulbs are poisonous. Supposedly the other side of the Sanzu River has, or actually maybe it's both sides of the Sanzu River. I'm not super good with this. The Sanzu River has spider lilies. Before we go to the other side. See me off, boys. Afterlife's reincarnation symbolism. But yeah, no, I'm probably my wife, I think, finds her work much more stressful than I do, because it's much more, hey, I'm up at 8, I'm not really done at 5, because there's a lot of social things that go into working in Japan. Now she does get to avoid a lot of it because she is a foreigner and has a kid, so that becomes a convenient excuse at times where it's like, I gotta go deal with the kid. Get out of that. Mushroom season. I'm not really good with my mushroom species, but I don't think you can eat this one. No, though. I don't forage mushrooms. The plan is we're going to walk down to where the castle used to be, and then we'll probably cross and walk back up the other side of the river. Yeah, the humidity can be rough in the summer. It's not the heat, it's the humidity here. We a lot of times during the summer we'll take weekends and stuff and go up to Nikko or Nasu Shiobara, up into the Shiobara onsen area, just as kind of a reprieve from it. Get away from it a little bit. But yeah, it can be kind of rough. I mean, to be totally honest, summer is my least favorite season. Autumn is my favorite. Particularly like the foliage, the weather, chestnuts, yuzu. Yuzu's kind of almost getting into early winter. Spring, I like the early spring with all the blossoms. The peach, the cherry. I like the peach. I like the cherry too, but I know cherry's the most popular in Japan, but I actually really like peach, maybe just because it comes so early. Winter's probably third, and then summer's my least favorite. Some of it, it's hot. I don't care for the heat as much. I prefer cold over heat. The humidity is probably the big deal breaker, though. Ooh, that breeze is nice. I think it was late July. We were in the Shiobara onsen area. It was just kind of one of those things where it was such nice change with, cooler, less humidity. It's like, damn, wish we lived here sometimes. Next time we're going back is November. That's abnormal for us. So usually, like me and my wife's thing is that we try to go to different onsen towns each time. So we very, very rarely repeat onsens or onsen towns. But we are going back to Nasu Shiobara. We really liked it. That's my next long form video that's coming out, is actually about a hike in Nasu Shiobara. The Shiobara Ravine Trail. Starts kind of a little upstream of Momojidani. Cannot pronounce things. And then you go upstream, hiking from there. At least I went upstream. Some people go downstream. So I started just a little north of Momojidani Bridge, and then hiked along the ravine trail. So up ahead in a little bit, we're gonna get to the ruins of a castle. Not a huge castle, just a small castle. I don't know much about this castle. They don't have like an information board that I've ever seen. There might be a case there used to be one, because there are some posts and stuff around, but no sign on them. A little annoying. Oh, this type of mushroom. I wonder what it is. Also mantis season. I've been seeing tons of mantises lately. A helicopter. There's a shrine to helicopters. I forgot its name. It's north of here in Haga. Actually, no, it's not in Haga. I thought it was in Haga, and then I looked it up and realized it was actually not in Haga. It was in a different town that now I'm drawing a blank. So that section of trees there is actually the grounds of a former castle. If you go along the Gogo, there's actually quite a few castle ruins from the Sengoku period. I'm trying to remember exactly. There was quite a few clans clashing in here in the Sengoku period. There was the Utsunomiya clan, of course. I think some of the Honda clan was also clashing or involved in the fighting here, but they would have been on the other side of the river. There's the Ki up in Mashiko. They ended up in conflict with the Utsunomiyas and eventually got destroyed by the Utsunomiyas. There's there's a few others. There's a huge castle, actually. If you go further south, huge in ground, you can tell. I can't remember who controlled that one. Someone told me once, and then I promptly forgot because it was like 2 years ago. My wife's not a history person. So yeah, you can see castle grounds. Now, you can only walk around in part of it. It's not, it's basically been left to get wild in there. You know, I do wonder if this was like a good place for crossing the river, if there was a bridge here. Historically, there's a bridge here now. And that part of the reason the castle was built here was to guard against people trying to cross. You get inside there and bushwhack. I think this was probably the keep here, because it's got the walls, but it's also got a dividing moat running through part of the middle that you can still find. Here, we'll take a short, quick look inside the castle. We won't super into the weeds. I don't have the right shoes for that. So yeah, you can kind of still see the earthworks from here. So let's take a look in the castle. The entrance is over on the other side, though, so we gotta kind of walk around to get there. There's the Gogo River. I just, with the number of castles that are kind of overlooking or really close to the Gogo River, I kind of get the feeling this was a front line for a bit of the Sengoku period. Lots of people scrambling over probably, those local petty wars that didn't really or weren't really going to shape the nation, but were, local power struggles that started in the vacuum of authority. Some of them were, you get these images of the Sengoku period, massive, massive battles. And then there were some battles around here. I was reading about one. It was like 40 guys on one side and maybe 50 on the other. And this was like for the area and for the arc of the conflict between these two clans. This was the large one. And there was about less than 100 people. I think these small petty lords just did not have the resources to maintain, huge armies and then field huge armies. And, you might be sending your 40, 45 guys out. You still need people to be back at the, home castle guarding it. I mean, that was also probably, they might have gone a little skimpy on that. That's probably why you saw a lot of women get involved in the fighting when it was a siege, on the defender's side. All right, let's take a look inside the castle. So, here we are. This is the ruins of a castle. I don't know the history behind it. I've only casually looked for the story. It's not like there's a signpost here, unfortunately, detailing the history. Which is too bad. Because I'm curious, but it's also one of those things that I'm curious when I'm here, but I never remember to go look it up later. So go in. There's not a ton of stuff that you can see. Not a ton of areas you can really walk to without bushwhacking, and I don't have the right shoes for a lot of bushwhacking. So let's start with the obvious. Earthworks. For most castles, this is what remains. This is actually not that steep, which makes me think maybe this was the gate. Or is just the most worn down. Graveyard, pretty typical. No shrine though. Usually a small shrine is pretty typical for these castle ruins. Okay, give you a better idea of the earthworks. So first, kind of the first primary defense, you have these layers of earthworks. I'm standing on top of them now. Now, back when this is a castle, the wall would be built on top of these earthworks. So to get to the wall, you had to climb up the earthworks. Steep, slows you down. And the other thing too is that it actually makes you an easier target. Enveloping fire, I think they called it, where it's set up so if you miss one person, you could potentially hit the person behind him. Bows, guns, throwing a rock. So here we have the wall. And then the first layer of the keep. This is the part that's the most accessible. So you can see the earthworks. It'd be an inner wall. This would probably be used for moving troops around, deployments. And then you can see on this side, it looks like there would have been a second wall. So you would have actually been between two walls right here. So even if you got in here, Well, I guess you got the angry people over there if you haven't eliminated all of them. And you got more enemies over here behind a wall. Now, you wouldn't have as much earthworks to climb. I guess that's a positive. I wouldn't want to be in a siege. I wouldn't want to do it. I wouldn't want to be in a war general, but I think attacking a castle sounds miserable. I mean, I don't think defending would be that much fun either, because you're sitting there waiting for this superior force to come in and try to kill you. Nah, doesn't sound fun. I'm not sure what that is. Looks like it's just kind of farmer storage. So that might have been like a tower or a gate. Might have been a gate here. I think the design idea is to make the attackers basically walk through lots of places they can be shot. There's a piece of high ground here. Not sure what it was. This might have been another sub area. There might have been a gate here. Another set of walls there. Let's get to the interesting part. So, what I find the interesting part is all of this. You go through all of this. There's still some mosquitoes out. And you realize, oh, hey, there's a dry moat. So you go down and, oh yeah, more earthworks over there. That's even higher, so that makes me think that was the keep in there. Some type of animal bird in there. I should have a video where I put a trail cam here so you get an idea. I think it was a, what did I catch on camera here? Raccoon? Nice. I should set up a camera in here again. So yeah, and that part isn't really cleared out, but I think that's where the keep was. That was kind of the last fallback for the defenders in there. Ooh, frog. All right, let's get out of here. So yeah, there's a castle. Must have been a pretty boring explanation. Everybody left. But yeah, castle ruins. Not the biggest one in the area. There's actually, some of the ones to the south are smaller. Give you credit. There's a pretty impressive one in Mashiko, Samoji, or Takadate Castle. That was the that was like the fallback citadel for the Key clan. So the Key clan, like a lot of the clans, had this at the time, where they had maybe two castles. One of them was more of their capital and administrative castle. You know, if they got surprise attacked, it was a defendable, easily defendable position, kind of in the heart of their power. So the Key clan, for example, has one that's right where the Mashiko Ceramics Art Museum is now. They had one. And so that was kind of their capital. In many ways, this is where they spent most of their time, you know, where they ran their domain from, because it was right in the heart of their power. But they had a second castle, Samoji Castle or Takadate Castle, depending on the time period, had different names. And that castle was a more serious military defensive position. That was away from their center of power. It was away from the cities and the towns and stuff. It was up in the mountains. It was kind of remote, but it was easier to defend. And so this was not actually an uncommon setup during the time period where they would have, a castle that was sort of in the middle of their power and more administrative, also probably a little symbolic. Probably had a lot more administrative buildings, but it wasn't as defensible as a second castle they had that was usually on a nearby mountain or in a more defensible position. It was usually a little more larger. If you go to Izuwakamatsu, you can see the same thing, right? There's Izuwakamatsu Castle, which is what we think of when we go to Izu. It's where the battle was. But there's castle ruins to the south of it, which, same idea, whoever controlled Izuwakamatsu generally used that second castle as their defensive stronghold in case there was an attack. Now, the Edo period comes. The Tokugawas are in control now. Now, the Tokugawas don't exactly love that system, right? So what they end up doing is they end up passing a rule that you can only have one castle per domain. So the thing is it was a time of peace, so most of the clans abandoned their more strategic, defendable castle, left it to ruin, and kept their more administrative castle. We're gonna head back now. There's actually a castle, then there was a castle in Sano where, I can't remember the clan's name, basically they decided, we're gonna keep our really defendable stronghold, this castle that had never actually fallen in battle, right? Been attacked multiple times, never fell, right? Throughout the throughout the Sengoku period, right? Never fell, was considered one of the most defendable castles in Japan up in there. It is a trip even to get up to that thing, right? Due to elevation, steepness, complexity of the earthworks, you could tell this thing would have been an absolute nightmare to take. Well, they decided, we're going to keep this castle, we like it. So later, they end up, basically the Tokugawa regime later, this might have been 50 years later, this is after the Sengoku period ended, they eventually said, oh, well, no, you can't keep that castle because it's too tall or too high. They kind of came up with some excuse. Oh, I remember. They claimed that when there was a fire in Edo, now Tokyo, that they could see it from this castle in Sano, and that meant that it was looking down on Edo, which was not allowed. I think most historians and everybody pretty much agrees it was like they didn't want them in that castle. They were a little bit like, all right, it's peacetime. We're in charge now. Why are you still occupying this super defensive war mindset castle? Anyways, that little rant chased off everybody. So we have nobody watching. That's okay. If you are watching on the replay, I hope you like, share, comment, and subscribe. If you did watch, I hope you enjoyed this little autumn walk in Japan. And I will see you in our next adventure.